Do you see that? That's the moon. It's like as bright as this light. That's crazy. For those of you who are new here, my name is Zach. I'm a photographer and arts administrator based in Santa Barbara, California. And today's video is all about this little guy. This is the Canon RF 35mm 1.8 STM macro lens, otherwise known as my first RF lens to own. I'm super stoked to talk about it today. So let's talk about the basics right away. This is a 35mm full frame lens from Canon. It is for the Canon RF system, which is their newer mirrorless line of cameras. This is a budget-friendly option in the Canon RF lens lineup, coming in at just under $500 US. The lens is not weather sealed, but it does come with a control ring and an aperture ring, and it has optical image stabilization. This lens has macro capabilities, and the minimum focus distance is just about 7 inches, so you can really get close to your subject. But you should know that this is a fast aperture lens. The focus plane is really, really narrow when you are shooting that close up. Just something to be aware of. This lens is really interesting because the front element is really kind of tiny comparatively. The back element is really large and really close to the very back of the lens, which is really interesting. There is metal back here. Most of the lens is made of this like sort of sturdy plastic material. The lens does extend out if you are shooting something really close up. This will extend out and back. And like I said, it's not weather sealed, so just something to consider. I don't know that you would need this lens to be weather sealed necessarily, but just something to know. Let's talk about the build quality of this lens. For the price at just about $500 US, you're really getting a lot here. The quality is nice. The plastic feels good. It feels well built. It doesn't feel as premium as some of my L lenses, but that is really to be expected, especially considering this lens is like 1/6 the price of some of the RF L lenses out there. For what it is, you get a really solid build. The lens does have a clickable control ring, which you can program to various settings in the camera. It also has optical image stabilization, which you could turn on by using the switch built on the lens. There's also a focus switch on the lens, which is pretty standard across all of Canon's lenses. As you can see, it fits really nicely on the Canon R6. It just looks really good with the camera. It fits really well. It is a really wonderful combo. It makes this a light, easy combination to take with you everywhere. I love the way that this feels on the camera. It just feels good. It just works really well. The lens comes in at about 3 inches by 2.5 inches, and it weighs about 10 ounces. Just know that that's pretty small and light, especially for an RF lens, like I mentioned. All in all, for the price, I'm really happy with the build quality, and I'm more happy with, the size and weight and how it feels on my R6 and my USR. Now, one of the best things about this lens is the image quality of it. Again, it's a cheap lens considering the Canon RF line of lenses, but it delivers really incredible image quality, and that is something that sort of surprised me, honestly. I wasn't really sure what this lens would deliver, but I'm super, super happy with the image quality. It does have an aperture of f1.8 at its most wide end, so it does let in a lot of light. You can get that really dreamy bokeh, and especially with this lens, since you can focus so close, you can really isolate your subject from the background. More than anything, I'm so impressed with this lens's sharpness. It's really sharp right from f1.8. What I'm finding as I test more of these RF lenses is that they're really, really impressively sharp. This RF 35 is really great in that regard. It doesn't feel clinical though, which is also something really important. I really love the way it renders images. The bokeh is nice, the fall off is nice. You can really get nice separation from the background. This lens does make a pretty nice flare in some situations, but I did notice in some really harsh lighting conditions that the flare splatters a bit and it becomes a bit unpleasant. But in most of my use of this lens, I was pretty happy with how it handled backlit situations. I also didn't notice any issues with the vignette or distortion. All in all, for what it is, this lens handles really, really well, and I'm super happy with the quality of the images that are coming out of it. As far as the autofocus goes, the lens is really fast and accurate. The autofocus system on the R6 is superb, and this lens is a perfect match to this new autofocus system from Canon. The autofocus is accurate and fairly quick. It's not as snappy as some other lenses that I've tested with the R6, but all things considered, it does really, really well. When you're shooting stills, the lens does make some rather jarring, grinding noises as it focuses, which was actually pretty surprising for me when I first started using this lens. But being an STM lens, it is absolutely silent when you are shooting video, and that is huge, especially since this lens is such a great little lens for video, especially paired with cameras like the R6 and the R5. That leads me to video. This lens is really, really wonderful for video. I was so impressed with the quality of the video that comes out of this lens combined with the R6. There is something really special about these RF lenses and the pairing on the RF system. I noticed this with the test of the RF50 1.2, the RF85 1.2, and now even with this little 35 1.8 with its much lower price tag, I'm still getting a really amazing result for video. The autofocus is spot on. It's really, really sharp, creates a really beautiful image. There's nice fall off. The bokeh is really beautiful. You can let in a lot of light. It's stabilized. This is like a no-brainer, I think, for the Canon R system, especially if you're shooting with the R5 or the R6, to have a lens that has so many amazing built-in features that works incredibly well with this system, to have this native lens without adapters, without having to worry about things like autofocus or stabilization or anything like that. You can get it all basically with this little lens, which is really, really amazing. I've been vlogging a lot with this lens over the past couple of days just to test it out. Was really happy with the results. I do think 35mm is a little bit tight for a vlogging lens. So I think if you're going to use this for vlogs, you might invest in something like a Joby GorillaPod or something, just to give yourself a little bit of extra distance from the camera to be able to prop the camera up and shoot that way. Just something to know about the focal length itself. But other than that, it is an excellent lens for the R system. So downsides, I really don't have any with this lens. I think the only thing would be weather sealing. I just would like to have weather sealing. That would be nice, but I understand it's not typically in lenses that are in the more budget-friendly options from Canon, which is, it's fine. It is kind of annoying though, considering we have really amazing little lenses from Fujifilm that cost less than this, that are made of metal and are also weather sealed. It's just kind of annoying. I feel like this lens should be weather sealed. Also, it comes in the box with pretty much nothing other than the lens itself, plus the front and rear lens caps. There's no lens hood, there's no bag, not that I really use the bags anyway, but a lens hood at least would have been nice. Again, it's not an L lens, so I understand. All in all, this is a really awesome little lens to pick up if you are an R6, an R5, or even an RP or an EOS R user. If you're in the Canon mirrorless system, I would definitely recommend this 35mm lens for you. 35mm is not a focal length that I have used a lot in my photography, but I'm really happy to have this lens in my kit. I'm actually really loving exploring this focal length and seeing what it can do. This lens has so many pros, being really small, light, pretty compact with the R system. It really makes your camera system something that you can pick up and take with you everywhere. And as you know from watching my videos, that is something that is really important to me. To compare it with something like the Fujifilm X Pro 3, it's not that much bigger than that system. Okay, it is bigger, it is heavier, but it still is manageable to take with you. If you wanted to make this your everyday camera, you could. It's not something that would be completely unreasonable. I've used this lens in a variety of situations, both landscapes, portraits, event photography, and I think it works really well in all applications. I've also joined the team of a wedding videography company in town, and I've been shooting weddings with my R6. I was actually shooting a wedding last weekend with my R6 and the 35 handheld for a large portion of the day, and it handled really, really well for me. The autofocus was great. The stabilization was awesome. It was just also a really light, compact camera setup, and I really enjoyed just hanging on to it and shooting with that for most of the day. I think for me, it is a lens that I can just bring with me pretty much anywhere because it just fits in your bag and it can do so much. So let me know what you think. If you have questions, leave them down below. Do you use this lens? Do you like this lens? Are you waiting for the L version of the 35 RF? Let me know what you think about it, if you've used it, if you've enjoyed it as much as I do, if you think there's something better out there. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a comment. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I'd love to see you at the next video. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Love is free, coming